Hilchis Nachalos Perik Chamishi. Zeh HaKlal BeYorshim. This is the rule by Yorshim. Kol Shnei Yorshim. She'echad mem Yeresh Vadei. V'Hasheni Sofik. So the din is Ein L'Sofik Lum. However, V'im Hoyu Shneim Sofik. Shemezehu HaYeresh Shemezehu. So then Shneim Chelkim B'Shavah. So the rule by Yerush is if you have someone that's a Vada Yeresh, and then there's someone else that's maybe also a Yeresh, so we say we give it all to the Vada Yeresh, and someone that's a Sofik Yeresh doesn't get anything. Masha'enkin, if they're both besofik, each one is a Sofik, who is the real Yeresh, so then they divide it equally. Leficha, what would be the case? Mishames, v'hiniach ben v'tumtum yadreglis. He left over a son, and he left over also a tumtum yadreglis. So the son is definitely a Yeresh. The tumtum yadreglis depends. If he's a Zocher, he's a Yeresh, and if he's not a Zocher, he's not a Yeresh. So the din is Hariyah ben Yeresh Hakel. So the ben gets everything. Sham tumtum yadreglis sofik, and that's the rule. That's this halacha that when there's a Sofik Yeresh and a Vada Yeresh, the Vada Yeresh gets everything. However, he niach bonis v'tumtum vadregenis. He left over daughters plus the tumtum vadregenis. So then his Yeresh is b'shavah. They all get equally. V'areuhu ka'achas min habonis. The tumtum is at least a daughter. Because he's not less than a daughter. So the daughter is yarshin together with the tumtum vadregenis. The fact that maybe he's a son doesn't change anything. That doesn't change anything. And lepel, he gets ka'achas min habonis. That's what it says here in the Ram. Now, the Maisa, this din, that when there's a Vada Yeresh and there's a Sofik Yeresh, the Vada Yeresh gets everything, and the Sofik Yeresh gets nothing, that's a Chiddush in Hilchos Yerusha. Because L'mashal b'negei Dinim Mominus, we have L'mashal, in the beginning of Bab Metzia, you have a talis, Zeimer Kulishli, V'Zeimer Chetzishli. So the one that says Kulishli gets 3/4, and the one that says Chetzishli gets 1/4. And what's the Seichel? Because since the one that's saying Kulishli definitely has half, because the other person is also only tiny Chetzishli. So half is definitely his. The question is about the other half. The other half they're arguing about. So that other half they divide. So Mamela comes out the one that said kulishli, which definitely has half, and maybe he has whole, so he gets 3/4. And the other one, which maybe he has half, so he gets 1/4. Or the part that they're arguing about, they get 1/4. So l'chura del bezach over here, you have a person that he's definitely a Yerush, but could be there's another Yerush. If there's another Yerush, he's only entitled to half. So half he's definitely entitled to. But again, the other half, it's a suffix. Is the other person a Yerush? So therefore the other person is entitled to the other half? Or the other person is not a Yerush? And therefore this person that's entitled to the first half is entitled also to the second half. In other words, the Zocher is definitely entitled to half. If the other one is a Zocher, so he's entitled to half as well. But Lepel, the other half, is a suffix if it's his or the others. So l'chura, if we go follow the halacha the way it is in the beginning of Shnai Me'ez and Betalas, so l'chura over here also would be the Vada Yerush should get 3/4, and the suffix should get 1/4. If you find normally with Dinim Amadis, and that's Be'emes Tesis discussion in the beginning of Bab Metzia. What's the difference between this type of a case and another case, and the case of Shnai Me'ez and Betalas? But Lepel, the din is not like that. The din is by Shnai Me'ez and Betalas. Tak over there, the Vada only gets 3/4 because he's only a Vada and a half. And in the other half is a suffix. Mashenkin over here it's not a psadin, he's a vada in Mominus. It's a din in Yerusha. He's a vada Yerush, and the other one's a suffix Yerush. So there's a rule that a suffix Yerush is not a Yerush. So that's how Reb Chaim is masber. That's a din in Hilchos Yerusha. There's a Yerush, someone that's a vada Yerush. The question is who's the Yerush? So we have the Yerush HaKarev, he's the Yerush. Now when you have two people, one is a vada Yerush and one is a suffix Yerush. So the din is that the Yerush Vada, he's the Yerush. And the Yerush Sofik is B'chlal not a Yerush. And since they're B'chlal not a Yerush, so Mamela, there's nothing to talk about. It's not a din of Hilchos Sveika de Mamela. It's a din of Hilchos Yerusha. And Mamela, since he's a Vada Yerush, so Mamela, he's the Yerush. And the Sofik Yerush is not the Yerush. That's l'chura the beer of the first din, that when there's a Sofik and a Vada, so the Sofik is not a Yerush. On the other halacha, there's a Shaila. There was the Rambam's Firzu is the second halacha, that when there's a Tumtum and Bonis, so then their chilk is b'shavah. So then you don't say this din of Ein Sofi Meisim Devadai. When do you say Ein Sofi Meisim Devadai? When do we say that the Sofik Yerush doesn't yarshin? When there's a Zocher and a Tumtum. So the Tumtum doesn't yarshin. But if there's a Tumtum and Bonis, so the Kulan Yerush is b'shavah. And over here, l'chur, you could ask also the same question. You could ask a question that l'chur, in this case, where there's the Tumtum and Bonis, the Tumtum is definitely a Yerush. Because Mimanav the Tumtum is a Yerush. If the Tumtum is a Ben, he's the only Yerush. And if the Tumtum is a Bas, he's a Yerush together with the Bonis. The Bonis are a Sofik Yerushes, because if the Tumtum is a Ben, so they're not Yershim. So why do we say that the kulam yesh is b'shava? Why don't we say also that the tumtum should be the Yerush Hakel? Because lepeil, the tumtum is definitely a Yerush. He is definitely a Yerush. So also over here you have to explain that the chilik is, in the case when there's a zocher that's a Yerush, he's a zocher. We know he's definitely a Yerush on everything. He is a din Yerush on this Yerusha. That's for sure. Now the question is there another Yerusha? Is there another Yerusha? So then that's the Shaila. So Ein Sof Mesim Devad. The Shaila is on the other Yerush, whether they could also come here. Mashengan over here, when you have a tumtum, so the tumtum is not the Pshat, the Shaila is on the bas, whether the bas is a Yerush. The Shaila is if the tumtum is a Zocher. If the tumtum is a Zocher, so then the bas is not a Yerush. But the Shaila knows, when do we say this din, that the Sufik can't be a Yerush if the Shaila is on the Sufik? First we established that he's definitely a Yerush, the Ben is a Yerush, and now you have the Tumtum, and the Tumtum you're declaring whether he's also a Yerush. So we say, declaring him as a Yerush, he's not a Yerush. Masha'inkin over here, declare is not on the bonus. It's not the declaring on the bonus also Yershim. The question is the Tumtum, it's not a declare benegir the bonus. The question is whether the Tumtum is a Zocher or not. So since the Yiseda Sofik is on this person that you want to make him into a Vadai, so that doesn't go. You don't become a vadai if there's a suffix who you are. Since he's definitely going to be a Yerush, but he may be a Yerush al Stur Bas, not al Stur Ben. So Memela, that doesn't have this din of a vadai where the suffix can't be made some vadai. This whole din that a suffix Yerush is not Yarshin is like a Chiddush Nilchus Yerusha. So we're saying this Chiddush Nilchus Yerusha is only when there's a suffix on the other person that's coming in. The suffix is on the tumtum with the zocher. So the suffix is on the tumtum with the zocher. We say we don't rechazach with this tumtum. Mashenker over here, there's no suffix on the bonus. We know clearly who the bonus are. The suffix is whether or not this person you want to call him a vadai, what he is he a zocher and a keva? So when the suffix is on him himself, and through that's going to determine whether the bonus are going to be yorshis or not. Over here, we don't apply this din of ein suffix meisim devad. That's what Rabbi Kiva says. Halacha beis. Kvar biyanu bilchasishus din abonis im abonim b'mzenisem ubeparnososum. That there's a din that they're entitled to mzenis. Knows that they're entitled to the mzenis from the Yerusha, and they're also entitled to parnosa. That when they get married, they're entitled to a certain amount of money for the nedunya. V'sham biyanu sham mzenis mitnai aksuba. That mzenis is mitnai aksuba. Part of the tnai aksuba is benin nukvin the heavy lechim minoi yasm bebesi umitzim minchosei. So the mzenis is mitnai aksuba. Now ubizman shenchosim merubim is ein lebonis el mzenisem. So when the nechosim are merubim, so then the bonis only get the mzenis, and v'habonim yirshu akel, and v'yisparnu su habonis b'yisum nechosim kidei shinasu beil balei. So lepel from the money that the bonim yarshin they give mezenas to the bonis, and when the bonis have to get married, so then they're entitled to parnasa, and that parnasa is isur nechosim kidei shinasu beil balei, which the Rambam discussed the protim and hilchas issues. Ubizman shenechosim watim, but when this man is nechosim watim, so then there was a special takana that ein lebonim klum. El hakel lemozin abonis. So nachabal. Mikra the dinner, the bonim are the ones that yash, and they really should get everything. Then there's another din that there's a part of the ksuba. Part of the ksuba is that the bonis should be nizoinus from the nechasim, and then there's also a din that they get parnasa from the nechasim. Now that's all talking about when there's nechasim merubim. Now regularly there's nechasim merubim, so there's enough nechasim for the bonim and for the bonis. There's enough for the bezenis. I have the bonims. I have the bonis. Until the bonus will become gdelis, so memela, so the bonim yarshin and the bonis are getting mzenis from the bonim, and then eventually they get also the parnos. Masha'inkin, if we're talking about nechasim watim, so now there was a concern that maybe if the nechasim watim will go to the bonim, and the bonis are not going to end up having the mzenis that they need, so therefore Chazal instituted that bisman that the nechasim are muatim. The bizman shenechosim watim, so then ein lebonim klum el hakel lemozin habonis. Everything is given away to a sholish, is given to bezdin, and they hold it for mozin habonis. Lefichach mishames v'hiniach bonim ubonis v'tumtum adreganos. Now, sometimes there's an advantage of being a ben If there's nechasim murubim, so it's an advantage of being a ben because you're the Yerish. There's sometimes an advantage of being a bas. If nechasim muatim, so then if you're a bas, you're an nezenis from the nechasim. Now this tumtum and adregenis is a sofik ben, sofik bas. So always these are meisim mechaver al varaya. So if it's nechasim murubim, so the ben will tell the tumtum adregenis lepel since it's nechasim murubim, and memela I'm a Yerish, but who says you're a Yerish? You're a sofik Yerish. Ain't sofik meisim devada. So therefore you go to the bonus and you be nezenis. Masha'inkin if it's nechas muatim, so now the bonus are getting the mezenis. So now the bonus say to the tumtum adregenis, we're definitely bonus, and therefore we're entitled to mezenis. But you're a sofik ben, so in Mela you're also not entitled to the mezenis. So this din really that ain't sofik meisim devada is being used also legabe the din of mezenis. That's the chiddush over here. Is nachamo. So bisman shenechas muatim ein lebonim klum elakel mozen abonis lefichach. Misha mes, v'iniach bonim b'bonis v'tumtum yadregnes, bizman shem nechasim urubim is abonim yershim, and v'deichen hatumtum etzel abonis, and v'nizim kamesim. So the bonim say to the tumtum, you're not a yerish, go to the bonis and be nizim kamesim. You'll be entitled to mezenis. The fachas you're entitled to mezenis, but you're not entitled to the yerusha. Bizman shem nechasim muatim, so it's fakert habonis deiches hatumtum etzel abonim. And therefore, so the tumtum or the andregenis is always a suffix, and therefore he always has the disadvantage. In other words, if it's an advantage of be a ben, so the ben pushes off the tumtum andregenis to the bonus. And if it's an advantage to be a bas, so then the bas pushes off the tumtum andregenis to be like the ben, which is not getting any nechasim. Because lepel, we're talking about in a case where there's nechasim muat. Halacha Gimel. So here the Rambam is going to bring out different cases where the Yisod that was discussed in Halacha Aleph, that when there is a suffix and a vadai, so ain't suffix, we don't rechnzach with the suffix. So when there's a vadai yerish, for example, there's a ben and there's a tumtum, so the vadai yerish is yerish sakel. We don't rechnzach with the suffix yerish. Masha'inkin, when there's both of them asfekes, and there's a suffix who is the yerish, so then we say that it's yachleku. So these dinim will be brought out here in these halachas. Halacha Gimel. The Seder is that when a woman gets divorced or she becomes an almana, she's not supposed to get married for 3 months in order to establish whether or not she's a muberes, and then she could get married. Because if she's going to get married before the 3 months, there's a concern that 7 months after the marriage she's going to have a child, and we're not going to know whose child it is. Is it the child of her previous husband or a child of her present husband? So therefore, the Chazal instituted that she shouldn't get married for 3 months. Now this woman didn't wait. Mishal ishos achar bayla shleisha chadashim v'nisas and v'yolda ben and taka bein yodu and ben tishal rishna ben shival achrim. So then the din is ein zeh ben yerish echad mishneim. So the son can't yarshin any of those people that are possibly his father. So the other yarshim say to him, listen, we're definitely yarshim. Let's say they have children. Both of these people have children. So now this Safi comes along, he wants to yarshin together with them. They say to him, listen, we're definitely this person's child. Now you're maybe his child, maybe the other one's child. So therefore you can't yarshin. That's this din benigea if this Safi wants to yarshin. The mes haben, and on the other, if the child dies, so then shneim yershin say fakert. So these two possible fathers, we don't know who his father is. So they yershin say v'chel can be shavim. They shneim Safik shem v'zev. So that's this din. Ein Safik meisim devadi, since he's a Safik Yiddish, so he can't take out from the Vadi Yorshim. Masha'inkin over here, fakir, the two possible fathers are both Safik Yorshim, so Mela, they together are Chelkim. Now this din that we say that this Safik doesn't Yarshin, either of the fathers, in a case where they have sons, so it's Pashat. Since they have sons, which are Vada Yorshim, and Mela, this person's a Safik, so this Safik can't take away from the Vada Yerish. The shaila is what happens if these people, which is possibly his father, don't have any sons. Let's say he has a brother. So over here, there's a suffix. In other words, the brother is a Yerush only if there's no son. Masha'in, if there's a son, so the brother is not a Yerush. So maybe the question is over here, he's a suffix, maybe he's a son. The other one is definitely a brother, but a brother is not a Yerush unless there's no son. So over here, are you also going to say in suffix mitzvah divade, or over here you're going to say that there's a suffix, which one is the real Yiddish? So the Maisa, the Rambam doesn't really say any different. The Rambam just says that Ein haben Yiddish is echad mishneim, Because he doesn't say Ein Echad Mishneim in a case when they have sons. So there's a dion in Shittas Ram. This says in Rishenim itself there's a machlekes. There's a machlekes whether or not this din only applies when he has sons, or this applies also when there's other Yorshim. So machlekes are Rishenim. And then in Shittas Rambam there's a dion what the Shittas Rambam is according to which Rishenim. The Pashtus Lashon Rambam, the Rambam is not machalik. The Rambam just says that this suffix is not Yerish Echad Mishneim. He doesn't say only when the Echad Mishneim have sons. Halacha Dalet. Yevama Shlishos Shleisha Chadoshim V'Nisyabma B'Teich Shleisha Chadoshim V'Yolda Ben. Again, a Yevama, a woman that her husband died, and he died without children. So the din is that his brother is supposed to be Miyabmer, but on the other end, the brother shouldn't be Miyabmer before they wait 3 Chadoshim. Because you have to establish if she's Taka Muberes, if she's a Muberes and she's going to have a child, she's really not royally Yibum. She's not royally Yibum, and really it's a Isser to be Miyabmer. So first she has to wait Shleisha Chadoshim, and only then could he be Miyabmer. But Lepel, she didn't wait. She didn't wait, and she went ahead and she was Nisyabn Teich Shleisha Chadoshim. And Lepel again, a child was born 7 months later, and the question is who the child is. Is the child the person that died, the husband that died, or is it the child of this person that was Miyab, the Miyab? That's the Shaila. Nachalos. Allah Dalet. Yivama Shlisha Shleisha Chadoshim, and V'Nisyabma B'Teich Shleisha Chadoshim. The Yibum was performed during those 3 months, and V'Yolda Ben, she was born a Ben 7 months after the Yibum. Then Yaduah Mentishal Rishnim and Shival Achrim. Now Zah Sofi came, but this child says Shem Ben Amesani. The Irish Nixi Avikula. Notice the Shaila is who is Yerish, the person that died. So we learned before that the Yavams, when a person is Miyabim, he's the Yerish. Obviously, the Musig of Yibum is only when there's no child. If there's a child, there's no Musig of Yibum, then he's not a Miyabim. So the question is, if this suffix is really the child of the mess, so it comes out that he's the Yerish. There was no Yibum. There's no Yibum. There's no Musig of Yibum. Masha'inkin, if he was the son of the Miyabim, so the Miyabim was Miyabim, the Mess's wife, so Mele he's entitled to the Yerusha. So there's a suffix between the Yavam and the suffix, who is the Emsi Yerish. That would be a case. There's a suffix, we don't really know. So the din is that it says suffix came Hashem ben Ames, and it could be Am the ben Ames, and therefore V'irash Nichsi Avikula. Ve'nat royally up, She'enim mi bas Yibum, B'chali, there's no musik of Yibum. Am the Yerish. This child is the Yerish. That's possible. By Yav Eimer, could be a Taka, it's possible. But on the other end, Shema B'niyata, maybe you're my child. V'imcha Ru'yali Yibum, and your mother, which was my wife, which was my Yavama, was Ru'yali Yibum, and therefore Ve'in Lecha B'nichsi Achi Klum, you're my son, and I'm his brother, and I was Miyabim his wife. Is Hail V'gam Zeh Yavim Safik, Shema Yavim O'en Yavim. So then it's Chelkim B'Shabbat. That would be a case where there is a suffix who is really the Yerish. Is the Yavim the Yerish because he's the Yavim? Or is the child the Yerish because he's the child? And Mamela, there's really no Yavam. V'chein din zeh hasafik im bnei hayavim b'nichsi ames shnisyab mishtei. So it's also chelkim b'shava. Hasafik machza u'bnei hayavim havadoy machza. So just like if he's dividing it with the Yavam itself. So there's a suffix. This suffix says maybe he's the son of the mess and therefore he's entitled to the whole Yerusha. Maybe the Yavam is the Yavam and therefore he's entitled to the whole Yerusha. And therefore they divided. Each one gets a half. So al derech if he's dealing with the bnei Yavam, the Yavam died already. So now the question is, who is yashning the mess? Who is yashning the mess? So we say, could be the suffix is yashning the mess, because the suffix he's the ben hames, and could be the Yavam yashning the mess. And since the Yavam yashning the mess, so then the bnei Yavam yashning the mess. So memela, so therefore the bnei Yavam again. So there's a suffix, just like there's a suffix in the Yavam. And the suffix who the child was, so al there is a suffix between the bnei yavam and the suffix. Now the ma'ase is, and therefore the bnei yavam get half and the suffix gets half. Ma'ase is, there's a smokum to say that the suffix should get more than half when he's dealing with the bnei yavam, because lepel say there's one tzad that this suffix is a ben, so he gets the whole thing. Then there's another tzad that he's not a ben, but even the tzad that he's not a ben, he's fourth, so he's a ben yavam. So Mela, since he's a Ben Hayavim, he's entitled as being part of Ben Hayavim. So Mela L'chura, let him get a half as being a tzad, maybe he's the Ben Hames. And now, according to the tzad that he's a Ben Hayavim, he should also be entitled to a chelik in the part of the Ben Hayavim. So Mela L'chura, he should get more than half. But Vaistu is that we say that not like that. We say that you can't get, over here there's a suffix, You can't get two tzdadim of the suffix which are stira one to the other. Whereas on one hand he's getting a half because he's maybe the ben ames. Now you want him to get also part of the bnei hayavam because maybe he's the ben hayavam. If he's the ben hayavam, he's not entitled to the half. So the fact that he's entitled to the half causes that he shouldn't be entitled to anything that's in the bnei hayavam. Whereas we're working on two tzdadim. Either he's the ben hayavam and maybe he's only entitled like the bnei hayavam, or he's a ben ames and then he's entitled like ben ames. So the pale, since he's getting half because of a svara that he's a ben ames, so therefore he can't get any other part as the svara that because he's the bnei hayavam. That's a svara that says in Marcheshes. It says svara, you have to understand the svara, knows how it works, b'negea the dinim moments. But I call upon him, that's the din of it. It's clearly that the din is that when he's dealing with the bnei hayavam, he doesn't get more than half. He only gets just like if he would be dealing with the yavam, he gets half. So when he deals with the bnei hayavam, he also gets half. And we don't reckon that even like the tzad, that it belongs to the bnei hayavam, so it belongs to him also. So maybe he has more of a tzad over here in the sveikas. That meis hayavam achar shecholikim zeh sofik. Now, knows what happened was the yavam divided with zeh sofik. The first case, the first case there was a sofik, and lepel the yavam got half, and the sofik got half. And now, after the yavam got half and the sofik got half, the yavam died. Mes hayavam achar shecholikim zeh sofik. Now, uba bnei hayavam avadoim lida shaviyam. So they're coming to Yashin, their father. Now, the pashtus, since he's a sofik, he has no rights to the Yerusha of their father, because he may be the Ben Ames. So since he's a Suffolk, they're Vades, children of their father. He's a Suffolk, a child of his father. So therefore, he's not really entitled to any Yerusha of their father. But he could taina, right. I have no right to the Yerusha of your father because I'm a Suffolk. You're a Vade, I'm a Suffolk. But on the other hand, your father took half because of the tzad that maybe I'm his son. In other words, if I'm the Ben Ames, so then I was entitled to the whole Yerusha of the mess. The only reason why your father took half of it, because there was a tzad that I'm not Ben Ames. So if you're being doich mina from the Yerusha, because you're saying I'm the Ben Ames, so I'm saying if I'm a Ben Ames and I'm being doich from the Yerusha, fine. But at least give me back what your father took. What your father took as being being mitzad my suffix of being his son. Because if I'm Ben Ames, I was entitled to the whole Yerusha. So Mela L'chura, right now I'm tiny to you Mimon of Shach. In other words, you're telling me I'm a Ben Ames and therefore I'm not entitled to any Yerusha. Fine, I'm a Ben Ames. So according to that side that I'm a Ben Ames and I'm not entitled to any Yerusha, I want back what your father took because of the tzad that I'm his son. And if you're not giving me back, so Mela give me something as being possibly his son. That's what he's saying. Mesa Yovn Achar Shecholikim Zasafik. Then ubo bnei hayov mavadoim lila shaviyam. Is aval pi sheyesh lezeh asofik leimalem l'churi hikatayna. Im achichem ani, if I'm your brother, it's nuli cheli b'Yerusha. So I'm entitled to the Yerusha. Elamai, you're telling me you're not giving me the entitlement to the Yerusha because I'm a sofik. Maybe I'm not your brother. V'im einam ani achichem, and if I'm not your brother, and therefore you're telling me that I'm not entitled to the Yerusha, fine, I'm willing. Because your father only took the chetzi based on the fact that I might be his son. So I can't be losing both ways. I'm losing the half because I'm his son, and I'm not getting any Yerusha because I'm not his son. So we say no. That's the din of Kom Dina. We say once we establish that the father gets half, so he gets half. We don't start thinking why he got the half. Lepel, there was a dintera between him and the suffix, and Lepel, he was entitled to half. And that half became his. We don't start thinking why it became his. And now when he dies, so Lepel is Yarshim Yashinim, and now when this suffix comes along and he wants to Yarshin, we tell him, listen, that ain't suffix Meitzim Devadai, and Memele, you have no entitlement to Yerusha. I is timing Memon of Shach. If I don't have an entitlement to Yerusha, so that money is mine. You can't work both ways against me. You say no. Because Lepel, since that was already a psak din, so it became the Yovams. That Chossi became the Yovams, and we don't rechenzach why it became the Yovams. And now when there's a Yerusha, like Abi Hilchas Yerusha, we're saying so the Bnei Yovam could push off this Sofik. Halachei. Sofik v'hayovam shebo lachlek b'nichse avi hayovam. So until now we were talking about that there was an issue b'negeh the mess. The Sofik and the Yovam were arguing who is the Yerush on the mess. Now we're talking about there's a Sofik and a Yovam, and then the Yovam's father which is the suffix grandfather, dies. And the question is, what rights do the suffix have over here? Now, if the suffix is the son of the mess, so he's entitled to half of the Yerusha, of the grandfather. Because his father was a brother, and he's the son of that brother, so Memela, he's entitled to half of the Yerusha. If Lepel, he's the son of the Yavam, so he's entitled to nothing. So the Yavam is a Vada Yerish, he's a Yerish of his father, and this suffix, we don't know. We don't know if he's the son of the mess and he's also a Yerish, or he's the son of the Yavam, he's not a Yerish. So that's the regular din of a suffix, that a suffix Yerish is not made from a Vada Yerish. That's this din. Suffix Vayavam, Shabo Lachlik, B'nichsi Avi HaYavam. So then is Hare HaYavam Yerish Vada. Hare HaYavam is doch Yerish Vada. This Yerish, the Yavam is definitely Yerish. He's the son of the person that died. V'zeh suffix, Imu Ben Ames, so then is Yesh Lechatzi Moment. If he's the Ben Ames, then he is a Yerish. And then Lezeh HaYavam Chetzi, so then they divide 50-50. Aber Vimu Ben HaYavam Ein Leklum. Is Lefichach Yerish HaYavam. That's why the Yavam yashins everything, because he's a Vada Yerish. The Yidach HaSuffix, and the suffix is Nitcha, because he gets nothing, because he's a suffix Yerish. Now, Hiniach HaYavam Shnei Bonim Vadoim. The Yavam left over again. There was a Yavam and there's a suffix, and besides that, the Yavam left over now Shnei Bonim Vadoim. Hiniach HaYavam Shnei Bonim Vadoim. V'achar kach mes Avi HaYavam. And then the Avi HaYavam died. There was a Yavam, there was Miyabim, Eishes Hames, Lepel, a child was born after 7 months, they shouldn't wait 3 months, so there's a suffix V'yavam. We don't know whose child this suffix is. Is he a child of the Yavam, or is he a child of the mess? Now the Yavam dies, and the Yavam has 2 children. The Yavam has 2 children. Now, obviously, in the Rishus, in the Nechosim of the Yavam, so this suffix has no rights because he's a suffix. Mele der Vada, he's a suffix. But now the grandfather dies. The grandfather dies. So here there's 3 Einaklach. There's 3 Einaklach. 2 Einaklach that are definitely the Yavam's children, and then there's a 3rd Einakol which we're not really sure. Is he the Yavam's child, or he is the child of the mess, of the one that died, which the Yavam was Miyabim, his wife? Now, what will be the nafkamina? If he's the Yavam's child, so then there's 3 children. The Yavam is the only Yerush, was the only Yerush of the grandfather, because he was the only son, and that had children. So Memela, his 3 children, Yarshan, the grandfather, and Memela, they divided in 3 parts. On the other end, if he is the son of the mess, the one that the Yavam was Miyabim, his wife, so then he's entitled to half. So here there's a suffix whether he's entitled to a 1/3 or he's entitled to half. He's definitely a Yerush, because he's a grandson. The question is he a Yerush through the mess, and Memela, he's entitled to half, or is he a Yerush through the Yavam, and Memela is only entitled to a 1/3. So that's this din. Nochamal. Hiniach HaYavam Shnei Bonim Vadoim V'achar kach mes Avi HaYavam. Then the Avi HaYavam died. Is Harei HaSuffix Emer, the suffix saying Ani Ben Ames, and therefore Yeshli Machza. So I'm entitled to half because my father was one of the sons, and I'm the only son of my father. So Melev Yeshli Machza. Well, Lishnechem, and the 2 of you take the other Machza, which is your father's portion. That's what he's timing. Vashnayim Meimul Lavdavke. Vashnayim Meimul no. Atochinu, you may be our brother. Uben HaYavam, and you're the son of the Yavam, our father. Ve'en L'chel Shlish B'nichzi Hazokin. So therefore, you're only entitled to a 1/3 of our grandfather's nechasim. Says Hazay. HaChotzi shemeida lehem bay. That chotzi, which he obviously is meida, that these 2 bnei Hayavam Vadoim are entitled to, so they get noitli. Vashlish shemeida hein bay loy. In other words, the 3rd, which he definitely is entitled to, is also noitli. So he's definitely entitled to a 1/3. They're definitely entitled to a half together. In other words, each one a quarter. So what's left that there's a dion about? There's a dion about the 6th. In other words, which is the difference between a half and a 1/3. He's telling you that maybe I deserve a half, and they're saying we maybe only deserve a 1/6. So, I'm sorry, maybe you only deserve a 1/3. So Meila Zazeh, a 1/3 he got, and V'hashtus Hanishar, and the extra 6th, which wasn't sure who it belongs to, is that Chel K'nei B'Shava, who Neitel Chetzye U'Shneim Chetzye. So he takes a half of the 6th, he gets a 1/3 and half of the 6th, and the other ones take the half together, so each one gets a quarter, and then they divide that half of the 6th together. they divide that half of the 6 together, which is the Pashtus Advarim. In other words, so it's Mammon Amutul B'Safik. Over here, you don't say in Safik Meisim Divadi, because he's definitely a Yerush. He's definitely a Yerush. The question is, how much of a Yerush is he? So on the part that we're clearing how much of a Yerush he is, so that there's a suffix. So that we say that's Chilkim B'Shava. So he gets his third, they get their half together, and then the extra 6, which wasn't clear who it belongs to, they divide equally. Now Mesa suffix, that was one din. That was one din. Now there's a new din. Mesa suffix. There's a suffix and a yavam. There's a suffix and a yavam, and lepel the suffix dies. Now who is the Yerush of this suffix? So it's a suffix. Now if he's the son of the yavam, so then the yavam is the Yerush. But if he's the son of the mes, so then the yavam is just an uncle. But lepel, there's a grandfather. There's a grandfather which is the aviyah mes. So the aviyah mes gets the Yerusha before the achiyah mes, like we learned before. So Melo via Mesa Sofik, the Sofik dies, is that Ayov says Shem Ebniu, and therefore Vani Yerushalayim. So I yashin him because he's my son. The father of the Yovim, which is also the father of the Mes, says Shem Ben Bni Amesu. Maybe he's my son's son, which died. So therefore I'm the Yerush. So here there's a suffix between the father of the Yovim and the Yovim, who's the Yerush of this suffix. So the din is Chelkim B'Shav. So then it's Chelkim B'Shav. Mes HaYovim, now we have a new story. Mes HaYovim, the Yovim doesn't have any children. The Yovim only had this suffix. So there was a Mes, and then the Yovim was Miyabimim. So there's a suffix whether he's the Yovim's child, And now this Yovim also has a father, which is still alive. So now the Yovim dies. So the question is, who is the Yerush of this Yovim? So maybe the suffix is the Yerush of the Yovim, because if he's the son of the Yovim, so he's a Yerush of the Yovim. But on the other hand, maybe he's not a son of the Yovim, he's a son of the brother. So this Yovim is only his uncle, he's not his father. Maybe he doesn't yashin him. Why? Because this Yovim has a father, and the father is closer to the Yovim than this nephew. So Mele Mes HaYovim of the Yovim died. So over there before, the same idea. Over there before there was an issue, there was an argument between the Yavam and the grandfather, who is the Yerush of the suffix. And over here is Fakir, there's an argument between the grandfather and the suffix, who's the Yerush of the Yavam. Mes HaYavam, Hari HaSuffix Gamer, B'nai Ani, I'm his son, V'yirashenu. No, maybe Shem ben B'ni Ha'achirata, maybe you're not really his son, you're my grandson from the mess. He's only your uncle, because I'm his father. A father comes before him. A father comes before a nephew. So that's Chelkim B'Shav. So that's again, these are dinim where you say the dinim is when do we say that he's considered a person that's a Vada Yerush, and then the other person comes and wants to be Yerush. So we say that if there's a Vada Yerush, so then the suffix Yerush doesn't get anything. Masha'inkin, if there's a situation where a person are definitely a Yerush, and the question is, how much is the Yerush? So that part where there's a suffix on, so then we say that Chilkin, that's this din. Or there's Bechlal an issue, who is really the Yerush? Like in these cases where there was an issue between the grandfather and the suffix, or the grandfather and the Yavam, there's issues, who is really the Yerush? So then the din is that each one is Yerush Chetzi. Halacha Vav. Mi shenofel habayis olav al ishtei. Person, there was a husband and a wife, and it was nafal habayis, and they both died. Who died first? Did the woman die first, or did the man die first? Now we learned a Baal is Yerush Ishtei. A Baal is Yerush Ishtei. So if a woman dies, so then her husband yashins the wife. And then if the husband dies, after his wife died, so all the nechasim that he yashin from his wife goes to his yashim. Masha'in came if he dies first, and then she dies, so then he's not Yerush her bekever. In other words, even though he was her Yerush when he was alive, but now that he died, he's no longer her Yerush, and therefore the Yerusha goes to her Yarshim, whoever her Yarshima, that's where the Yerusha goes. Now over here, so because there will be a difference, a major difference. Who died first? Again, if she died first, so he Yarshined her, and now his Yarshim Yarshin him. Masha'in came if he died first, so then he never Yarshined her. And Memela, her, and then now when she dies, what her Yerusha goes to her Yarshim. And the question is, who gets her Yerusha? That's the issue here. Is Nachalos. Misha nafal abayis olav alishte. There was a bayis that fell olav alishte. Ve'en yodua im isha meset chila, and v'nimtzu. If the isha was meset chila, so then nimtzu yershi abal yershin kol nechasel, because he first yashined her nechasim, and now the yershi abal get those nechasim from him. Oh no, or maybe what happened was that habal mes chila. First the Baal died, and then v'nimtzu yershi isha yershin kol nechasel. So the Chosim go to the Yershi Isha, and the Yershi Isha are not Yershi Abal. They're different people. The Yershi Abal, the Yershi Isha could be children that the Isha has from a previous marriage, not from this Baal. So I'll call part of the question is, does the Yerusha go to the Yershi Abal? We're talking about the Chosim of the Isha. Does it go to the Yershi Abal, or does it go to the Yershi Isha? So Ketzad Din, what's the din? Is Mamidin Nichsim Melug Becheskas Yershi Isha. So we go like this. We see who is the muzik in this money? Who is the muzik in this money? So, but again, Nichsi Melug, we said that the Nichsi Melug, she was a muzik in the money. She was a muzik in the money. As far as the ksuba, the chiyuvi ksuba, the husband was a muzik in that money. In the ksuba, the nedunya, all of that money, the husband was a muzik in the money. As far as Nichsit Saint Barzel are concerned, so we learned before that they're both muzakim. That on one hand, he's a muzik because the Saint Barzel is in his possession. But on the other hand, since he has a chiyuv to return it to her, so therefore she's also considered a muzik. And that's where we had dinim, where they divide the nichsit seim barzel. So over here also we say that as far as the nichsi maluga concerned, since she's the muzik in it, and the question is whether it went over to the Baal, and then it went over to the Baal that the Baal yashined her, and then now goes over to the yashim of the Baal. So we say we don't really know that the Baal yashined her, and therefore it remains by the Isha. And since it remains by the Isha, so then the Yarshim of the Isha get these nechasim. Masha'enkin, those nechasim that the Baal was a muzik, and the question is, did he become mechuyev to give it to the Isha? And he only became mechuyev to give it to the Isha if the Isha died first. So me'ele fakir. So those nechasim we say they are becheskes abal, and therefore they go to the Yarshi abal. That's this din over here. So yesh v'nimtzi. Ketzadinam, Mamidin Nichse Melug Becheskes Yershi Isha. So Nichse Melug go to the Yershi Isha. Vaksube Saika and Saitesvis, that goes Becheskes Yershi Abal. That goes to the Yershi Abal because the Baal was a muzik in it. And the question is, did he become mechuyev to give it to the wife? And Vechel Kim Benichsi Barzel, same Barzel. As far as Nichsi same Barzel goes, that's the Chalukah. Yeshei Hoyisha Neitlen Chetzion and V'Yershi Abal Chetzion. So again. So over here the shaila is whoever was the muzik, it remains with his yarshim. So the isha, whatever she was muzekas, which is the nichsin maluk, and chotzi nichsin seim barzel, goes to her yarshim, and the Baal, whatever he was a muzik in this union of the isha. Obviously his other nechasim is a different story, but in this relationship with the isha, as far as the money is concerned, so obviously the chiyuv ksuba, which is a suffix whether there was ever a chiyuv ksuba, and whether there was a chiyuv of the tesis ksuba, and also b'negeh chatzim nichsit tzon barzel, that remains by him, and that goes to his yorsh. That's talking about if nofel abayis Allah v'al ishtei. Aval, im nofel abayis Allah v'al imei. Over here there was a bias that fell Allah v'al imei. Now the din is that a person yashins his mother. Person yashins is from his mother, but he only yashins with his mother if he's alive. If his mother dies and he's alive, so he yashins her. Masha'enkin if he's not alive, and lepel his mother dies, so normally there's a musik called that there's Yerusha also bakever. So even though this child is no longer alive, but nevertheless he yashins and then he transfers it to his yarshim. But by a mother, it doesn't go over that way. In other words, the yarshim of the son are really yarshim mitzadav. In other words, the yarshim, in other words, a person can have, let's say, he has a mother. His mother, he has a mother. Now he dies. Now his mother dies. So if he's going to yashin her bakever, so it's going to come out that where is the Yerusha going to go? To people that are b'chlal not related to her. It's going to go to his brother's minaf. So the din is that, lepel, the din is that you're not yashin your mother bakever in order to be maverit to the yarshihaf, to your other yarshim, b'kitzur. To the yarshim, there's no other yarshim which are coming with tzadaim, because yarshim mishpacha seim is not called mishpacha legabi Yerusha. So mele, if the person would die, and then the mother would die, and then the din would be that he would be Yerush Bekever, so he would be Yerush Bekever and be Maiva the Yerusha. So over here also, so the din is you're not Maiva the Yerusha. So again, so a person that was in the house, his mother and him both died. The question is who died first? Now, if his mother died first, so it comes out that he yashined his mother. If he yashined his mother, so now his brothers, or whoever his yarshim are, yashined his mother. They yashin. Because Lepeil, he first yashined it, and now it goes over to his yarshim. He yashined it b'chayev. Mashenkin, if he died before his mother, so then he doesn't yashin his mother b'kever to be maiver, that Yerusha to his yarshim. And what does it go to? It goes to her yarshim. If she has children, so she would go to them. And if she doesn't have children, she would go to her father's mishpacha. In other words, it doesn't go over to him b'kever. So that's the suffix over here. If he died first, so then he's not entitled to her Yerusha. And if she died first, then he is entitled to this Yerusha. Again. Avalim nafal habayis olav alimei. The house fell on him and his mother. So the din is azay. Mamidin is nichsi ha'em, benichsei becheskas yersheim. Since the mother had this possession, the question is, did this Yerusha of the mother go over to the son and then be transferred now to the other Yarshim? So we don't know. We don't know. If the son died first, it didn't. If the son didn't die first, it did. So since Lepel, the mother was a muhzik in it, so we say that it remains with the mother and Memele it goes over to the Yorshei Hoim. That's what he's saying. Avalim nafal abayis olav alimei mamidin es nichsi haim becheskas yersheim shehem yorshim vadoim. They're definitely Yarshim. Avol Yershi Aben Sofikein. Over there, there's a suffix. Shemesa Ben Tchila. So then, Ein LaEchad Echav Mi Aviv B'Nichsiyim Klum K'mesha B'Yarnu. Notice B'Negeya, the Yarshi Haben, they're a suffix whether they have a shaykhs to this Yerusha. Masha'enkim B'Negeya, the Yarshi Ha'im, they're Vadi have a shaykhs to this Yerusha. And therefore, the Rambam seems to be saying, using the same principle that we said before, that a Vada Yerish, when there's a Vada Yerish, and there's a suffix Yerish, so the suffix can be made from the Vada Yerish. So over here again, the Mishpachas Ha'im are Vada Yoshim. Masha'enki and the Mishpachas Haben, they're a suffix whether or not they're Yoshim or not, and therefore their suffix can be made from the Vada. We're saying over here, this case, that Nofel Abayis or Lov Alimei, and we say that it goes to the Yorshei Ha'im, and it doesn't go to the Yorshei Haben, because of the din, because if it's a suffix Navadai, this din of suffix Navadai is very different to the suffix Navadai we're learning till now. Because until now we're learning a Pashta case that someone dies, he has a son, and that son is definitely a Yerish. And there's also a Tumtum, and there's a suffix whether the Tumtum is a Yerish. So we say he's definitely Yerish. There's a suffix if he's also a Yerish. So we say that we don't reckon up with the suffix, we give everything to the Vadi. That was the din of a suffix and a Vadi. Over here, the issue is when she died and who's really the Yerish. Because if she died before the son died, so it comes out that the son yashined her, and now the son's Yarshim yashin him. They yashin him. If she died afterwards, if she died afterwards, so then it comes out that her Yarshim yashin her. So the question is really who's the Yerish on her nechasim? Is the Yerish on her nechasim from her mishpacha, or is the Yerish on nechasim the Yarshim of her son? Because the Shaila is when she died. So l'chura the lashon that this is a suffix, this is a vadi is not really such a simple lashon, because l'chura they're both suffix. One of them is not a vadi, one's not a suffix. So l'chura, I mean they're both sveikas. Not one is a vadi and the other one's a suffix. So that the beer is brought down nachreinim the pshat zazay. That it's not the same case of the suffix of vadi that we learned b'negei a ben and a tumtum. It's a different abana of suffix vadi. Because her yarshim from her mishpacha are definitely yarshim. They have a din yarshim to her nechasim. Whether they get it or they don't get it, even if they don't end up getting it, lepel they have it in yarshim. Could be they won't get it because it's going to go to the ben. But lepel, the father is a yerish even if there's a ben. In other words, a woman has a ben, so lepel, if she dies, the son gets it. But that doesn't make the father us yerish. He is definitely a yerish, but lepel he doesn't get it. He doesn't get it because lepel is a close yerish. That doesn't make him us yerish. Masha'in came the mishpachas haben. Mishpachas haben have nothing to do with this woman. It's only that if the case was that she died b'chaya ben and lepel the ben yashined it, so then they're going to yashin from this ben. So in other words, their shaykhs to this woman's Yerusha is a mechudish de shaykhs. It's a shaykhs that could only happen if she dies, and then the ben yashins her, and then it goes to them. But right now, before she died b'chaya ben, they have no shaykhs at all to her Yerusha. They're not even they're not considered Yorshim. So that's the pshat. The father, let's see what the issue is between her father or the son's brothers. So the father is a Yerush. He's definitely a Yerush. He's not necessarily going to get it because could be she has a son and the son will get it. But he's definitely a Yerush. Masha'en came, the brothers of her son are not definitely Yorshim of hers. They're Bechlai have no shaykhs to her. It's just that if her nechasim ended up being by the son, so then they're going to yashin the nechasim. They're not really yashing of hers. They're going to yashin her nechasim because they ended up being by the son. So the mela, so that's also the suffix because he's a vada yerish, and then there's so he's definitely in line to the Yerusha, and there's a suffix whether or not they ended up bechlal being in line. So Vaistois, that's also considered ein suffix meitz medivad. That's how it's brought down from the Chazin Yecheskel, from Cheskel Abramski. Halacha Zayin. Nafal habayis alav al ben bitet. Person and his grandson, through his daughter, were in a house together. The house fell and they both died. The question is who died first. Now the Ma'inaf Kimina. Now the din is that a ben bita, if he's the only Yerush, he's the Yerush. So there's no sons. A person has a daughter, and that daughter has a son. The daughter is no longer alive. So that son yashins his grandfather. That's Pashat. Now once the son yashins his grandfather, so his Yarshim yashin him. Let's say if he dies without children, so his brothers mi aviv will yashin him. His brothers or his father will yashin him, which has nothing really to do with his grandfather. This grandfather was the father of his mother. This child was ben bite of this grandfather, but Lepel, since Lepel, the grandson, yashined this grandfather, so now from the grandson it goes over to his brothers or to his father, people that are really unrelated at all to the grandfather which he yashined from. But Medvar Mamurim, if the grandfather dies first, and then this grandson dies, so it goes over to his Yorshim Miyaviv. Masha'en came if the grandson died first, so then the Yerusha of the father doesn't go over to his daughter Bakever to go over to his son in order to be Meirishit to his brothers. There's this din of Mishmush that the Yerusha goes over Bakever doesn't apply in order Lahaver to Yerusha from this father, which had a daughter and then had a son, it should go over to his children. But rather, it goes to the Yarshim of the father. So then the father has no children, he doesn't have a daughter, he doesn't have a son, and the daughter has no children. So Memela it goes over to the grandfather's father. And the grandfather doesn't have a father, so it goes over to his grandfather's brothers, like we learned before, the beginning of Hilchos Nachalos. So again, if Lepel, the grandfather died first, so Memela the Ben Biti was the Yerish, so then it goes over to the Ben Bite's Yorship, which is from Mishpachas Zav. Masha'enken, if the Ben Bite, that's if the grandfather died first. Masha'enken, if the Ben Bite died first, so then the Yerusha doesn't go to the Ben Bite, and it doesn't go to the Yoshim of the Ben Bite, rather it goes to the Yoshim of the Av. So that's this issue. Halacha Zayin. Nafal habayis alav al Ben Bite. Is im ha'av mes chiluf. In reality, what happened was that the father died first. Is Ben Bite Yerushenu. So the Ben Bite is the Yerish, because his grandfather died. And v'nimtzu anuchasim shel Yashia Ben. So now, since the Ben also died, so it goes over to the Yashia Ben. Now v'im Ben Bite mes chiluf. Masha'enkin if the son died first, is Eina Ben Yerish's Ime Bekevik Meshabiyanu. He doesn't get, the mother was entitled to this Yerusha, but that doesn't go over to the son in order to be over to the son's Yorshim, which are Yorshim Mehav. So Eina Ben Yerish's Ime Bekevik Meshabiyanu. V'nimtzu, so who are the Nechasim going to belong to? The Nechasim are going to belong to Yershiav. So over here there's really a suffix, who's the Yerish? Is the Yerish the Yershi Ha'av? No, they both died. They both died. So is the Yerish, and the question, the Nechasim of the grandfather, who does that go to? Does it go to the Yershi Ben, or does it go to the Yershi Av? So we say that Lefichach Yachleku, Yershi Ha'avim, Yershi Ben Abbas. So these two sets of Yershim, the Yershi Av and the Yershi Ben Abbas, they divide the Yerusha of the father of this Bas. V'cheinem Nishbo Ha'av, Umez Ben Bite B'Medina. So in other words, again, the same type of case. We don't know who died first. A person died. A person was Nishba, so he finds himself in a place where we don't know when he died. And then Umez Ben Bite B'Medina. Ben Bite is here. So we know when he died, but we don't know if he died before the grandfather, after the grandfather, or Nishba haben, or the ben was ben Nishba, and then Umes Aviime b'Medina. So again, we don't know which one died first. So the din is Yachluku Yershi Avim Yershi Ben Abbas. So in such a case, since we don't know who's really the Yerush, so therefore you divide the Yershi Ben Abbas, the Yershe Ha'av together with the Yershi Ben Abbas. We don't know who, because we don't know who died first. So we don't know who's really entitled to the Yerusha. Is the father, the Yershi Ha'av entitled to the Yerusha? Because Lepel, the Ben Habas died first? Or no? Or is the Yershi Ben entitled to the Yerusha? Because the grandfather died first. So therefore they divided with each other. Which meant, there's the obvious question that L'chura we just learned before, in a similar case, that when there's a suffix, we say that the Yarshim of the mother are considered Yarshim Badoim. So here the question is the Yarshim of the Ben of the mother. So in other words, we have over here a mother and a Ima and a Bite. What was the case before? Nofla Abayis Olav Alime. So you had Olav Alime, him and his mother. And the question is, who's yashning the mother's nechasim? So if the mother died first, so he yashned the mother's nechasim. And Mele goes over to his yarshim. If he died first, so then he never yashned his mother's nechasim, and then it goes to his mother's yarshim. So over there we said that it goes to his mother's yarshim, and we don't say yachleku. Why not? Because we said because Ein Sof Meitzim Divadi. Even though it's not really mamish Ein Sof Meitzim Divadi, we explained that Ein Sof Meitzim Divadi because since the Yorshi Aim are Vadi Yorshim Legabi the Aim, they're Vadi Yorshim Legabi the Aim, even if they don't get the Yerusha, but they have a Vadi Din Yorshim. Masha'enkin, the Yorshi Aben are not really Vadi Yorshim Legabi the Rushkush of the mother. So therefore it goes into the cloud of Ein Sof Meitzim Divadi. So the over here is the exact same case. Over here is a case of the Nofel Abayis Olav Al Ben Bite. So his Yorshim are definitely, the Yorshim of the grandfather are definitely Yorshim. The question is if the Yorshi Haben have any shaykhs to the grandfather. Because l'chura they have no shaykhs to the grandfather. It's just that the Ben, if he'll yashim the grandfather's nechasim through his mother, so then they'll have a shaykhs to the grandfather. So the question is, why over here do we say Yachleku and over there we say in Sof Meisim Devade? So that there's a din in Achreinim that to explain the difference, that over here, Sof Kol Sof, it goes through the mother. In other words, the mother, even Lepil, when she's not getting the Yerusha, but still she has a din of a Yerish, and therefore they're both considered a suffix, and that's not a gather of a suffix Meisim Devade. It's explained in Achreinim. Halacha Ches. Nafel Habayis Olav ve'alaviv Ishar Morishov v'hoisa Olav Ksubas Isho Balichev. So the case is, you have two people in a house, and one person owes, let's say, chayv, or he owes ksubasisha, he owes money. Lepel, he has no money to pay. He has no money to pay. Now, in that same house was someone else, which he is a potential yerish from. So if that person dies, so then he yashins that person's nechasim, and then the ksubasisha or the balichev is how we're going to get the chayv from. Now, the question is, they both died in the house. Who died first? So if the moirish died first, so it comes out that this other person, which yashin from this moirish, and Memele, he had nechasim before he died. Those nechasim became meshubed to the ksubah, or became meshubed to the chayv. And now, when he dies, or even when he dies, so that nechasim are meshubed to those chayvs. Masha'en came even a case where he died first, so he died without any nechasim. And Lepel later on, this murders died, so someone yashined him. But he never yashined him because he was never alive. He was never alive to yashin him. So Memele b'chiyai gavna, so those bali chayvus have nothing to collect from. Let's say a simple case. You have Yankiv and Ruvain, and Reuven's Yerush. You have Yankiv and Reuven are in a house together, and then Reuven owes money. Reuven owes money to someone. Now the question is, the house fell. Yankiv and Reuven both died. So the pale Reuven died with pashtus. He had no nechasim. So the chayvus that he has to have, there's no one to collect from. There's nowhere to collect from. He doesn't have any nechasim. But if Yankiv died before Reuven, so then Reuven didn't have nechasim. So then the Bali Chavis could go to Reuven and to the nechasim which Reuven yashin. So whoever yashin from Reuven, and Memele can get the money because there was a chayv on these nechasim. Masha'en came if Reuven died before Yankiv, so it was never really Reuven's nechasim. So Memele there was never a chayv on those nechasim. Memele when the Bali Chavis are coming to whoever yashins these nechasim from Yankiv's other children. So they tell her, we have no shaykhs to you. Reuven owed you money. He never yashined his father because he died before his father. Memele, so there's no nechasim that you have a shibara. That's the issue here. Nachamo. Nafal Abayis Olav Alav Ishar Merishav. V'hoisa Olav, and one of these people with the Ksubas Isha Balichev. Yershi Av Emrim, Haben Mestchila. The Yershi Av Ataining, the Ben was Mestchila. And V'lehiniyah Klum, and Memelev Avid Achev. So let's say he had other sons, and Lepel he's taining that this Ruvain never got any Yerusha. He never got any Yerusha because he died before the Yerusha. Memelev Avid Achev. Aber Balichev is saying, no, Ha'av Mestchila. First Yankiv died, and V'zocha Ben B'Yerusha, and Lepel, the Ben was Zecher B'Yerusha, and once he was Zecher B'Yerusha, so that became a Shiva to us. V'yesh lanu ligbis mechalke. Whatever chelik he has in the Yerusha, let's say there's a brother. There's two brothers. Yankiv has two sons, Reuven and Shimon. Now Lepel, Yankiv and Reuven died together. We don't know which one died first. Now if Reuven died first, so it comes out that the whole Yerusha goes to Shimon, and the Balichevis of Reuven have no right to anything. If Yankiv died first, so Reuven Yarshin half of the Nechasim. The Balachevis are coming now. Lepel, Reuven died as well. So Shimon is taking it from Reuven. But the Balachevis are coming to Shimon saying, listen, this karka which you Yarshin from Reuven first was Meshubah to us, but there's no hechrik that it was a Meshubah to us. So the din is Aryan Nechasim b'cheskes haYarshim. The Yarshim definitely are entitled to the Yerusha. That's for sure. And the question is there a shibur on the Yerusha? Balayisha, Balachevis, Lahavi Raya, Yelchalam Blikum. Because they can't go ahead and take from this Yerush saying maybe there was a shibut. Since there's no vade that there was a shibut, so they definitely have the Yerusha. Maybe there was a shibut. So it goes to the principle. We're not really sure that there was ever a shibut. Now, din elu shemesu tachas amapeles, eshu tovu bayam, eshu naflu leish, eshu mesu b'yemechad, v'zebim din izuvachim din acheres, din echadu. Because the whole yisod is that two people died, and the question is who died first. Shebechol elu ki yetzvem, ein yedin miushem estchila. So the kudas advarim is that two people died, and the question is who died first, and the question is depending on who died first, that will decide the din of Yerusha, the din of Chayvus. So that's the dinim that we learned over here. All the dinim, when you say that nafal amapelis, so who are dinim nafal amapelis or tovish neim bayam, any case where two people die and we don't know who died first.